Artie and Jack here, and we're going to give a little clinic. As a matter of fact, Jack is going to give the clinic. I'm just going to look like the rest of you. This clinic is more about the new kit we have now, the Delancey Street kit, and it's not so much about building that particular kit, but any kit that features a lot of brickwork, because the techniques for brickwork are not exactly the same as what you'd use for clapboard or scribed wood or anything like that. So this is specifically oriented in our case towards Delancey Street, but as other kits emerge through our line that use brick, this is something you're going to want to use as a really good reference. Jack did most of the building in Delancey Street, and he's going to actually help you out and discuss with you how to achieve great results, realistic looking brick just on your workbench. So Jack, welcome to Bar Mills again.
Oh.
And you're back.
Yeah, really. I brought the winter.
You brought the, it's cold up here today, folks. And Jack's going to take over right now, and stay tuned.
Hi, this is Jack, and we're going to talk about coloring brick and doing brick siding on different kits. And what we're going to discuss today isn't the only way to do it. It's just one of the ways to do it, and one of the ways we've been doing it for a little while. So we're going to talk about a couple of things that are kind of special with our brick, and then we'll talk about coloring brick in general. I'm going to start with the long side of our theater building, and we're talking about doing our brick. And the brick that we have here is cut on a task board, which gets a real nice detail in it, and it gives good depth to it, so it gives you a really relief on the sides of the walls, the brick walls. You can see here that we've got some plain pieces. These are the overlays for the lintels and under the windows and under the door. So those, if you look at them, you say, oh, you forgot the brick there, but they'll be covered. So they, in this particular picture, you can see that they just go over where the existing brick is. The difference with this material that we use is task board, and when you cut these bricks into the task board, you have to handle them a little easy, because what happens is if you get them too hard, they the brick will actually break off if you kind of peel it. So you want to be careful with it in the first stages. But what we've done is, by taking a 50-50 Elmer's glue and water, making yourself a wash, you're going to paint the whole thing over and let it dry. And what that's going to do is it's going to absorb into the material, and it's going to make it strong, and so it won't fall apart when you go to paint it. It'll help it keep it strong, a little stronger.
Jack, I have a question for you. Before you paint it, do you apply interior bracing, or do you do that at a later point?
You can do your bracing. The less you handle it before you put the water and glue on it, the better off you are. So some people might want to put the bracing on first, or you can do it either way. It will lay flat. If you have a problem with it curling a little bit, the easiest thing to do is flip them over backwards and paint the backside with the glue also, and she'll lay flat again. It's just the way it absorbs the glue that makes it curl. So you're only doing one side. If you do the other side, she'll lay flat. Then you can apply your bracing if you want, or you can put your bracing on before. Once you've let the Elmer's glue and water dry sufficiently, basically overnight, so it's nice and hard, and you've done your bracing on the back of the piece, bracing similar to this, that gives you some stability to the task board. Then you can, and you've done your lentils and all your pieces that you need to overlay. And there's actually some pieces that go on the tops of these too that you want to put on, because you're going to paint it all the same color at the same time. So what you want to do is pick your colors. So what I happen to use is a Barn Red and a Tucson Red by Apple Barrel, because they're inexpensive. They're close to the same color, but not exactly the same color. So I'll pick one of these as my base color. This one happens to be Tucson Red, and basically I'm just going to paint it with a brush, and most of my brush strokes will be with the courses of the bricks. That'll put your color inside the mortar lines, and that gives you a nice solid base color. The next thing you want to do is you get yourself a little brush that's got a nice stiff point to it, and you want to take a little different red color. And I'm going to do what everybody calls a little dry brushing. I'm going to just put it on the thing like this, take most of it off, and I'm just going to, you're not going to see it, but you will see it later. So what I end up with is not all the same color brick.
Now, Jack, does this make a difference if you're using the exact wall sections that come with, in this case, the Delancey Street kit? Or what would be the difference if you were using, say, this technique, say, on basswood versus, say, plastic, like a DPM kit or something along those lines?
Well, on a plastic kit, I might want to use a primer paint on the plastic wall. Again, you don't want too much, depending upon the thickness of your mortar lines, you don't want too much paint sometimes. And then I'd go over with my colors. I'd start from a basic color that might be white and then work from there, because I can reproduce what I'm trying to achieve. I know how to achieve it from white. I sometimes don't know how to achieve it from red and get the same. I get the same thing every time.
Well, let me ask you this. If you were dealing with basswood, would the approach to the interior bracing be any different than if you're dealing with, in this case, task board?
Myself, depending upon the thickness of the basswood, would be determined how much bracing I would put in. If it's a thin piece of basswood, I would actually brace it very similar to what I braced on the task board. That'll give me enough bracing to keep it strong and sturdy and stiff. So once you get some of these different colors in it, you might want to use two colors that are not quite so close, but I like it quite so close. I'm going to I'd let that dry. By the way, I'm using, to clean my brushes, a good old water and windshield washer fluid, which is alcohol and water. It works pretty well, really cheap. So once you've let the two colors dry, now you've got kind of not one consistent color, but a multiple color on your sides of your walls. The next step would be to do some kind of mortar in your line. Now that we have it painted with our two different colors, I think what we want to do is put some mortar into it. And what we've been using for mortar is this, it's a one-time spackle. It's a vinyl spackle you can buy at any hardware big box store. And it comes in a soft, fluffy material. And I found the best thing, unless you got something that's really small, the best thing to put it on is just your finger. So what you're going to do is going to kind of wipe it on, rub it in, and just keep rubbing it back and forth. And what it's going to do is it's going to fill in the mortar lines, and it's going to turn that bright red piece. This is still a little wet. You want to make sure your paint's good and dry, because this has a tendency to soften the paint a little. So just make sure it's dry. I'm just kind of doing it. Okay, after we've basically taken our finger and rubbed them in, you're going to get some buildup around your cornices and stuff. And if you take a little stick or even your knife, you can just kind of work that right on out. Leave a little bit in there. It's not, doesn't critical, and you can, so it's not a heavy buildup, but you can kind of get it out from the corners so you don't have a big. You can leave some. And if you want, this happens to have patch windows. You go back over your windows with a little bit second layer, and it'll get a little lighter color on it, and it looked like it was a patch and not a the same brick all over the whole thing. If you let this stuff dry overnight, this is the lightweight. If you let it dry overnight and you use your ink and alcohol, or you use your hunter line, either one, you can actually change the color of your mortar if you'd like to be a dark gray or a light brown by going over it with ink and alcohol, or your different browns, shoe polish and alcohol. They both work about the same. The other thing we did is we found a different material, which is by the same company. This is just a regular spackling paste. It's not the lightweight one. And if you want a heavier mortar, or you want some patchy spackle, almost like stucco, this stuff's a little thicker. So when you put it on and wipe it off, it takes a little bit more work, but you got to kind of rub it a little bit more so the bricks show through. And what you're going to get is some patchy cover, you're going to get some light cover. So you get a mixture of either this one or this one. This one looks like it's stucco that's broken apart, or stucco that's worn away. And by a little work you can get your bricks to show through. but you can also have patching material. So there's two different concepts here on your mortar. This is a light mortar, this is a heavy mortar with almost a stucco effect, which is both are kind of different, which is kind of cool. This one then can be painted white in the end or whatever color you like. And if you look, you can see on this one, maybe not too close up, but you can see the bricks are beginning to show through as it dries, which makes it look kind of cool. And remember that all brick isn't red. They eventually did paint the brick, or some of the cheaper bricks in the back of buildings were yellow and almost orange, depending upon the age of the brick it was built at the time.
Let me ask you, Jack, now this technique doesn't change depending on if it's on basswood or task board in this case, or resin or injection mold or plastic, correct?
It shouldn't, no. It should be exactly the same. You're basically painting your base colors of your brick, and then you're stuccoing or filling in your mortar lines with the lightweight spackle or the regular spackle. So it's going to be basically the same. The other technique that I've applied many times is what they call reverse painting, and that means I'm going to paint my mortar lines first. And I found this, I think it's Rust-Oleum camouflage colors. They have a nice khaki color and a sand color, which are really light beige colors that are out there. They cover really nice. So basically what I would do is I would spray the whole wall in my beige color, which is going to be my mortar color. And then I would get myself some cosmetic sponges, which are nice flat rubber sponges. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a dab of my paint. I guess I can probably give it a try here. Let me give it a try. You don't... this will take a second here. Alright, we're going to put a little bit of paint. Oh, maybe too much. That's alright. On the board. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to get most of it off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly paint. This one isn't too bad, but it'll work. I'm going to paint this over the tops of this by touching it. And if you can, I don't know if you can see it, but you might be able to see it on this. What's happened is I've just painted the tops of the bricks and my mortar lines are still showing. If I had painted the mortar lines, I think I would be a little bit more aggressive here, but this is just the color of the board. And what you get too is you get a random effect on the color of the brick. It's not all the same color because your mortar colors show through. And it's very quick and it's very simple. I had mentioned it before, but what I've been using is for my pallets is Post-it notes, and all you have to do when you're done is tear one off and you get a clean sheet, which makes it really easy for doing a lot of things. Getting paint off my fingers even. And the other thing is, these are makeup sponges you can buy at any drugstore. They come in a big bag. They're probably $2 a bag, and they make great little paint brushes. I think the next thing I'm going to move on to is talk about a little bit of weathering the walls. I've been using ink and alcohol since probably the day it started being introduced, and Hunter Line makes another nice alcohol and shoe polish, which is very similar. What you want to do with the ink and alcohol, which I think, if I remember right, it's 1 teaspoon to a pint of, I like to use 90% alcohol, and that way I don't have a lot of water. I'm going to take a very fine brush, and you're going to put a little bit under the windows, because that's would be, look at spots where you think water would run down. We're going to accent these a little later with some weathering powders, but I'm going to right now just use, like this would be, if this was the bottom of the wall, you'd have a little work here, and you're going to have some drips here. But by using the small brush, I can control it quite well. We just put the mortar on, so it's a little soft, but you give it a chance to wet. And now you're going to find out it's beginning to come to life with a little bit here and there. Very simple, very easy, very quick with ink and alcohol or Hunter Line. The next step is weathering powders. and I've got kind of into this pan pastels, which what I like about the pan pastels is that not too aggressive compared to the weathering powders. The weathering powders, they're very dark and they're very hard to get back to light. These seem I can bring them back to light. So I'm going to use a little bit of a rust color. Very soft tip brush. You don't need a lot, believe it or not. You can just kind of, if you get too much on, just kind of work it in. It softens the ink and alcohol. You just, and some a little across the bottom here. And that's just your rush color. Now we have the grays and we have blacks. Again, black is a little more aggressive, so you want to go light. Just a little bit. And then just buff it in. Oops. That one's a little heavy, but I can fix that too.
It looks like, Jack, what you're trying to do is control the contrast between these different colors.
Yep. I'm kind of doing it fast too. So. And then if it was on the ground, I'd use a little brown or a little green to represent a little moss growing on the bottom. And you can go easy, don't go crazy. Just use a little bit at a time and work it up small layer at a time. Don't try to go too fast. And you can get your brick to... You can use what's left on the brush too sometimes, and you get quite a bit. So I can lighten it a little bit. The grays are a little aggressive sometimes. Just kind of blend them right in. And now you get the like waters run down. And the other trick I found a while ago, which is really kind of cool, is I'm working with rust. Sorry. I've been using, this happens to be Bar Mills weathering powders, which we no longer sell, but they're out there, Dr. Ben's and things like that. I'm going to work with my ink and alcohol to use it as a carrier and a very fine brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip it in the alcohol, let it pick up some of it here, and I'm going to make a little paste over here. Just a little bit of paste. So now I can do a little fine line of rust streaks. So you can just put a few in here and there, and they make a huge difference in the end. And just by using the ink and alcohol as a carrier, it works really well. If you don't like the being so thick, as see it's coming out now as it dries, I can then take, excuse me, a little more alcohol, and I can wash them down a little bit, tone them up a little bit, like they were running down the building. And you can take that out and you get a little broader piece like that.
So you're both diffusing and diluting it at the same time.
Yeah, and you're making it look like it actually ran down the building. These are kind of a little bit dark. But
well, you're running under a 6-minute clock here, Jack. At least it used to be.
Yeah. So you can get an idea right there how you can age the brick right up really quick. And it doesn't take a lot of work, a lot of time. And experiment a little bit with it. You can have some fun with it. It's really...
Now this will dry a little bit lighter, I assume?
Yeah, it'll come out a little bit lighter. It always does. Most everything does. Most of the materials that you're looking at can be bought at the big box store or hardware store, which is kind of cool. Get yourself a good assortment of brushes. The other thing I found for you people that have been buying glue for me forever, which I couldn't find any longer, that Elmer's has come back out with a wood glue. It's basically wood glue. The only nice thing about it is it has a very fine tip on it. You can make it so it's one thickness of a common pin. You can use this as an applicator, and they're only like $2 a bottle, so you have to get your applicator and everything right in place. They're out there now available, so if you buy them up, get them up in case they stop making them again.
So basically, Jack, I can see what you had been working on for the video is actually lightening up, and the contrast is blending in a little bit more like we're used to seeing on a more completed model at this point. This technique can be used almost on anything.
Yep, plastic, wood, doesn't matter. Plaster is a little different, but not a lot. A lot of people, once they seal their plaster, they're working exactly in the same type of medium as they're working here with either taskboard, plastic, or wood.
Well, I think the thing with plastic or plastic sheeting, if you're using brick plastic sheeting, is to give it some tooth, give it a coat of that great primer that we're so famous, for telling you about, right?
Yeah, especially if you're going to use any kind of wash on it. If you put a wash on plastic, it just beads up. So you need to have something to adhere to.
Hopefully you've all noticed that they're having pictures on your screen, some of the walls that we've done for the original Delancey Street diorama that will give you a better idea of what you can expect when this is all done. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't get little practice pieces whenever you can and toy around with these effects. It's something I know you like to do a lot, Jack.
I do little pieces all the time just to experiment with different techniques. Don't be afraid to try something different, especially on a test piece. You can always just throw it away and start again.
And we're not making anything off this video. We're not trying to sell you anything. But the thing of it is we're trying to make modeling that much more fun, and it's always more fun when this stuff comes out this good. So I want to thank Jack Ellis for making the trip over on this really, really cold day here in December and sharing some of his techniques with us. And so for Bar Mills, this is Artie Fahey.
Jack Ellis, thanks for coming.
Thank you.